Hi, I'm Casey Bell, and you're watching Writer to Writer Interviews. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Writer to Writer Interviews. I'm Casey Bell, your host, and today's guests are Kathy and Matt. They are co-writers, writers of the play Unstoppable and the book Love and Jello. Join me as these co-writers interview each other about their play and their book.
Matt Rifenburg and Catherine Rhoden, Goguen are co-writers. Their play, Unstoppable, was first produced by Lynn Camp High School in Corbin, Kentucky. In July of this year, they published their first book together, Love and Jello. Matt and Catherine are interviewing each other about their play and book.
So Kat, what was the hardest thing about writing the book with me? Or I'm sorry, writing the play. Jeez.
So initially it was just getting the information because, we were complete strangers. So it's not like I knew anything really about you. So I didn't have it. It was a clean slate. So, once I started getting information, it was more detailed than what I had thought. And so trying to figure out how I was going to fit all of that into, some kind of organized play, I think that was the most difficult initially.
What was the most surprising thing that you found out that, obviously you didn't know me, but what was the most surprising thing?
There were a few lines in there that I felt like were the most surprising that someone would say to someone. I knew, like, when you get divorced, obviously it's usually not a smooth process and those kind, I expected like maybe throwing something at each other, like that kind of thing. But, when she says a line about, what you are now is all you're ever going to be, I would have to say I was pretty surprised at that because it's a quite hurtful thing, and I internalized that in that way. So, I guess it was just hard for me to hear that line and that really was a part of your story.
What did you get from the play personally?
I didn't know originally when I started the play, like the benefit that I would get from it. My father, of course, had passed away a little over a year before, and so I was, I would say the message of the play about being unstoppable and going on with life, no matter what is happening, whatever the difficulties are. That was a message for me, and I just didn't really know it. I don't even think as I was writing it, I'm not sure that I knew the message was for me. But the process of writing it was in a way like feeding me little bits of the message. And so once it was over and it was finished and I had time to reflect on it, I could look back and see, like, I think the whole play was really for me, but I didn't know that when I was writing it. So definitely just that message of going on, and that it was time for me to maybe not stop mourning, but stop being frozen in life. and move forward. It was time for me to do that.
Okay. Would you say, well, was it surprising to you that, going through the process of writing the book, or I'm sorry, writing the play, and, did you think, was it surprising that it would lead into all the other things that we're doing, like the podcast and writing more together and things like that?
I mean, for sure from the beginning, I thought that, I mean, my initial goal was that I was going to write a play, and, I could tell that we would get along reasonably well, and, it was a fun project, but, after it was over, I'm not sure that I thought that, there would be a next project. Just thought maybe, we would be like, oh, this turned out great, and, I'll text you at your birthday, something like that. So I don't think I really expected that we would continue with so many great projects and ideas, and but I mean, obviously, when the next one started to happen, then, as time went on, like, the more things that we connected with, it made it more clear that I thought, like, oh, this is going to continue. And so it has, as it were.
What has been the most difficult thing about writing with someone? I mean, you've written things on your own, and to have someone else jump into the mix and write together with you, what do you think has been the most difficult thing to get past and, in that process?
I think control is always the hard thing to give up. When you write by yourself, because writing is really solitary, and you're the god, I guess, of your, of the whole work. And so then to have to kind of be co-god, if you will, that's a little harder, or at least a little different, I would say. Just knowing that, everything might not go my way. That probably was the biggest adjustment. But then on the other side of it, the positive side is that it's an instant audience to motivate you as well. Like, you can be excited about sending the next chapter to you, or the next act of the play, and getting that instant feedback, and that's kind of motivating. So, it's a double-edged sword, and I luckily we did not have many disagreements, so control, wasn't a big issue. But in co-writing, I think that probably is probably the biggest issue that you might run into.
Okay.
Hey, are you a writer, a songwriter, a playwright, screenwriter, author? You write articles, poetry. If you're a writer, I want to sit down and talk with you. Go to my website, authorkcbell.com, and click on Writer to Writer interviews for more information. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this message.
The book is titled Love and Jello, and so I think the first question, like everybody always asks me anyways, is like, how did you come up with the title? And what's the significance of putting together such words, love and Jello?
Well, I think it was your mother she was the one who sort of inspired the all the different stories. She would relay them to you, and then you would relay them to me. And one of the things that she said was something about her always being treated when she was younger. She was always being treated, or I'm sorry, maybe it was her sister was always treated with love and cake, and that was sort that was sort of the Jello part was because we were talking about how crazy the stories were, and crazy and being sent to the maybe the sixth floor of the hospital or whatever where they serve you Jello and stuff. Uh, so the title sort of came from that, the love and cake, and then the Jello part. So.
Well, it seems, it seems to be a title that catches attention. And from a marketing standpoint, did you consider it in that way, that it might be a title that stands out?
No, I think, it was, I think because it was better than the original title, which might have been Taco Dip. I think it had marketability, sure, but that wasn't the overriding factor in choosing it for the title. I just think it fit.
So how is it that you came to think you could write a novel? Did you just wake up one morning and say, I've written a play, now I think I'm going to write a novel? Or
Yes. So through the process of hearing all these stories, we, I think it was like, I think we were talking about it, and one of us said, wouldn't it be good to write a book about, and include all those stories? And so we had sort of made plans to do that. And I just actually started writing it to see if maybe like the way that I was envisioning it would be the way that it would be written. And so I wrote the first chapter to get some feedback, and I think you had said that it was good, and so that inspired me to continue on with it. And basically, the writing part of it was more or less just to see where the story would go. I didn't really have a plan. I had a bunch of stories that needed to be included in the book, but I didn't have a plan as to how that would actually happen. So the difficult part was tying everything together and making it an interesting story. And but mainly I was writing it because I was getting such great feedback from you and your mother, because you would send it to your mother to read, and
sure.
she would she would give us feedback on it and stuff. And so the good feedback that I got was the inspiration to continue with writing the story, or and trying to weave all that stuff together. But I didn't know that I could write. So
Surprise! So it's gotten really good reviews so far. And how do you feel about that when someone writes? I mean, people you don't even know on Amazon or wherever, that they write, that they are touched by the characters and the story and the sweetness of it. How does that make you feel?
Pretty good. I'm amazed that I'm just amazed that we got the book done and got it out there and stuff, and the fact that people are they seem to be touched by it, or they seem to be receptive to the story and things like that. That's just a bonus for me. But I don't really, the 5-star reviews and things like that, I guess in some ways it's like validation for the work that was done and stuff like that. But I just wanted to see if I could write a book and make it a good story. And the fact that just people are responding to it positively and things like that is just, that's just great. Um, so
So do you feel more confident now that you can write a second book?
yeah, I mean, I have like the idea of that book has spawned into many others, and I think I'll be like we're going to turn Unstoppable into a book, and I think there's a lot more to come, and it just right now it's just a time constraint that doesn't allow me to do that as much as I'd like to, but yeah, there's a lot more to come. Sequel to Love and Jello, Unstoppable, and probably 10 or 12 others that are banging around in my head. So
So a lot of the readers have said that, once they start reading the book, like they can't put it down and they finish it, just in one afternoon or in one reading. Um, so these characters, did you find yourself like almost knowing them, or did they take on like some kind of almost human form, like where you're attached to them or feel emotions for them?
yeah, yeah, I think. Well, I mean, the one character is based on my father, and there's some sort of my relationship with him that's written into the book, and then um, one of the characters based on your mother, and so she's in there as well. I think you show up. So I mean, I took a lot of the you know I base the characters on real people, uh, whether they actually did the things that are written about in the book. Maybe some of them are true, some are made up, and it fits the story though. So, I mean, I did feel, as I was writing it, like at first I didn't like Don, the character, um, but I think over time, through writing his story and adding more detail and things like that, he took on a different sort of role, and I felt some sort of empathy towards him. So um, it was an interesting process. I did feel close to some of the characters, and other ones I just made them, crazy or whatever, just to fit the story. But it was an interesting process.
So when it was over, did you feel more happiness that it was completed, or was there sadness that, that it was ended?
I felt a little of both. I was happy the book was done, and it would be out there for other people to read, to get their reactions to it. I was excited for that. I did feel some sadness in that the process it was done, because I had a lot of fun doing it and making up, the characters. Uh, some of the things I like made up as I wrote, and um, I didn't have any preconceived notion of where the story was going to go. So that part was interesting, and it was kind of sad to me personally that it was over. But I did enjoy writing it, and so much so that I do want to write more, and the sequel and things like that. So I think there's a lot left to explore.
Yeah, so the sequel, we've had several comments about, there's a couple of characters in there that you seem to leave open-ended to what could happen next in a sequel. So do you have plans to explore further what happens?
Yeah, I purposely left some things open ended for that, so I could pick up the story, or continue it in some form. There were a few instances where I alluded to different things in the story, and that was done like mainly so I could pursue that later. So, I mean, it was originally written as as a book, and that was going to be the end of it. But then through the writing process, I started thinking like, okay, well, there could be more to this story, and that's sort of where some of these open-ended things were put in just for that purpose.
So what's the positive and negative of co-writing to you?
I would say control. um, it's nice to have someone to bounce things off of if I get stuck in a certain section, and someone to pick up the story if they see it going in a different way, and just so it's been a big help, having you there to to sort of guide me through the process and do some of the more technical things like formatting the book and that sort of thing where I have no clue about. But just having someone there to get feedback from has been a huge, sort of instant feedback. That's been a huge help, because otherwise I would have written it and then you would have read it, read the book, and it would have been a lot harder to go back and change things at the end rather than like after every chapter if there was something that needed to be added or changed or whatever. So it's been a good process, and I think we work well together, and we'll be doing a lot more.
So, were there any issues in either of the writings, the play or the book, about where you just couldn't agree?
Yeah, there was one part in the play where I think the original version had me crying at one point, and that's something that I probably wouldn't do in I wouldn't say any situation, but a lot of situations I just wouldn't. So we had to take that out. And then there may have been some place where you wanted me to be wearing a bow tie or something like that. I would never do that either. So
Never say never.
Yeah, I can pretty much say never.
So what happens? What would happen, do you think, if I was dead set on you are going to cry, or the character's going to cry at this point, and you were, just as passionately, no, they're not going to. How do you think that could be resolved? Or
I think that in the case of Unstoppable, because it was such a personal story, that it had to go pretty much the way that it was written. The things that I added were to make it seem more real and more true to the way things were for me. In the case of a character, I mean, I'm open to discussion. It really just depends on what fits in the story. I mean, what the person is wearing, or what the dialogue is, or things that the person might do or might not do. I mean, all that's open for discussion. I don't have any preconceived notions. If the character's like some tough guy, and he's like you could sort of feel that he would never be like crying because he saw a puppy or something like that, then the incongruent actions that would need to be discussed, and I would fight hard for that. So.
Hey, tough guy, is that why you didn't want to cry?
Well, you know what I mean. I'll just use that
Right.
as an example.
So, who do you think, the two of us, who do you think is easier to work with?
I would say that you are. I mean, you pretty much have given me free rein on a lot of things, and have agreed with the way that things have gone. Um, it's a give and take, though. I mean, I think that I'm pretty easygoing as well. I mean, I think out of the two of us, you probably are more so, because I'm a little bit more. I don't know. I can, like, I have a vision in my head of where the story's going to go, and what I see happening and stuff, and I'm pretty set in, like, making sure it goes that way. But I mean, I will compromise on things, you know. But I think you are probably the easier one to agree or get along with as far as that stuff goes.
So, what do you hope people take away from Love and Jello?
Just well, a couple of things. One is that your friends are important, and people need to help each other when they can, and also because it's written about people who are older, in like the later part of their life rather than the early part. Um, I think it's like, I think I want them to take away the fact that life isn't over until you say it is, and the things that happen to you, you can sort of move beyond and still enjoy your life. Uh, your past doesn't define your future, that kind of thing. Um, I just think it's so important for people to keep moving forward and enjoying themselves in life rather than letting things, worries or past mistakes or whatever, like drag them down to the point where they can't do anything except just exist. And
And that kind of seems to be a theme in Unstoppable too. So how do you think you have changed, um, as a person in the beginning of Unstoppable, like, with the Kelly story, I guess, starting about that age, like, to the age you are now? How have you changed?
oh wow, how have I changed? Um, I think I know more now of what's acceptable to me and what's not. When I was married to Kelly, I was hopeful that things would change, and things would just somehow automatically get better. And when they didn't, then you have to move on with life somehow. And so I think I did that. I learned a lot from that experience, and then, like, going through the brain tumor and all the things related with that, and then just a lot of different things have helped move me in the direction that I'm going now. So
So, if you had written Love and Jello in, your 20s, early 30s, how do you think it might be a different story, or would it be?
I don't even think it would have been a story back then. I don't think I would have related to the characters in the same way, and it probably would have been a totally different story then, because I was in a different place and even a different state, and um, just there's been a lot of changes through life that have sort of mellowed me out in some ways, and I'm not the person I was then. So I think that it would have been a totally different story back then had I had, like, no desire to even write a book then.
So what is writing like for you, since you started it a bit later than some people do? What does it offer you, or what's it been like to discover that you can write?
It's been interesting. finding out that I have a voice and that I have things to say that people find interesting, and uh, just getting like all the different things out of my brain. Like, in some ways, writing Unstoppable was helpful in, allowing me to exercise some demons, I guess. You know, um, and then, through the process of writing Love and Jello and some of the other plays that we've written, and it's just allowed me to expand my creativity and explore different feelings and things like that, where, you know I probably wouldn't have done, um, prior to any of this. So, I mean, I credit you with a lot of helping me do that, because you brought out some of that, and I'm grateful in a lot of ways for that. So.
That's very nice for you to. Um, so is there anything about writing that you don't like?
I'd like to find a way to do it faster. I mean, the process takes, it takes a while to sit down and type, you know, uh, 20 pages or whatever. So it'd be great to be able to use like text to speech, and that's an option that I'm exploring right now. Uh, just so I can speed up the process and get books out faster, and, get things done so I can move on to the next thing, and that sort of thing.
So for people out there that maybe have never written anything, but they feel like they've got an idea, what advice would you give to them to see, if maybe they're a writer as well?
Just do it. I mean, start putting in some time, writing things down, and you never know. You could be really good, or you could have, some ideas that maybe you'll need some help developing, or whatever. But I think it's something you should explore. If you feel strongly about, like, well, I have a story and don't know how to write it or whatever, there's plenty of resources to help you do that, and plenty of people willing to help you do that. I think that, there's no harm in trying. I mean, um, certainly if, you write something and it's not good, you can get help in making it better, and get to the point where you're happy with what you have, and see where it can go from there. You know.
Well, I guess my last question would be, people always look at the cover, and they also like the title, and they love the cover. Um, but they ask who's on the cover. So,
yeah, we've had a
can you
lot of
reveal that?
had a lot of different interpretations of that. Somebody said it was like Bernie Sanders and Judge Judy or something like that. It does look like Bernie Sanders, sort of, from the back. I don't know who the people are. It was just, I think you chose the cover, didn't you?
I did initially really like it. It was the first one that was sent to us, actually, by John Patrick Robbins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I think he did. I think he did a great job of capturing the story through a cover.
Yeah. Who do you think is on the cover?
It does look like Bernie and Judge Judy. Like, when people said that, it kind of was like, yeah, that is what it looks like. So, definitely my mom was able to see the cover before she passed away, and she really liked it. And the things she asked me were, if I thought the couple was in love, and because she was in the hospital, she was very sick at the time, and she passed away before she was able to actually see the book. But I was glad she got to see the cover, and to her, she really liked the cover, and to her, it expressed love for whoever, if it's Bernie and Judge Judy, or two of the characters in Love and Jello. It captured love to her, and I think that was a really good memory for me.
Yeah.
That she was pleased with it.
Yeah, and through the process of writing the book, she got to read it, and it means a lot to me that she enjoyed it as much as she did.
Yeah.
Because she was involved in, she was the inspiration for writing the book, and I'm really happy that she enjoyed it as much as she did.
Yeah, me too. So, I think that's the great thing writing can do, and I'll always remember the book and her heart in it. I'll always think of her. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have today for this episode of Writer to Writer Interviews. We would like to thank Matt and Kathy for their time. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.